Okay. Let's see. How do I not have, I'm so confused right now. Do I not have subject line? No. So that's not right. Side note. Hello. We're going to be having a conversation today, and this is going to be really weird and awkward, but we're going to do it. Okay. Is it this one, maybe? I don't remember which email I used. Hello. Okay, I need to figure out which account that I used for, let's see, crap. So I need this to work. Hello. So we are going to be having a conversation about intimacy today. And I would really love to get some questions from the people watching, but we're going to go through a series called the ABCs of Intimacy. And we're going to start with the letter A, which is for affection. So I want to talk about affection and how affection is extremely important in relationships, and that it can cause a lot of people to have a big disconnect. So I know for me, affection is one of my love languages is affection, which physical touch. So physical touch is a big love language for me. I need to know that you love me by how you show it physically. And it's not just sexually. It's not, I have to be careful what I say because TikTok loves to give me restrictions. Physical touch is not just sex. It's not just, getting down and dirty. Physical touch is so many other things and so much more than that. So for me, physical touch is as simple as holding my hand. I love when my face is caressed. I love any kind of non-sexual attention I think matters more than, actually trying to warm up somebody for the purpose of getting to the finish line. I'm trying to get onto this particular app that has some of my talking points because I want to be able to talk about specific things. I appreciate that, Jay. I really do. I am spoken for. I do have the love of my life that I cannot wait to marry one day. And I hope that you guys all find the love of your life too. And that's part of this series is to, help you guys figure out how to have real conversations for deeper connections. So just to introduce myself, I'm Nora Love. I am a model, entertainer, a mother, and an oracle full of love, light, and a little spice. And I am starting a series called the ABCs of Intimacy, which are specifically to engage in real conversations for deeper connections, to help people have real, open, and honest conversations about intimacy, which a lot of people get confused with things having to do with the physical act. We're not talking about the physical act. We're talking about intimacy today. So I have a lot to share. Obviously, as a woman, I have a lot of my own thoughts, but I would love to know what you guys think. What does intimacy mean to you specifically? Okay. Ugh, I have to do so many things to try to get into this damn account, and it's so aggravating. Let's see. And my keyboard on my laptop doesn't work. There has got to be an easier way to do this. Okay, I may not be able to use this. We might just have to talk it out. I am too high to talk, but listen. Thank you for the honesty. Well, like I said, this is the ABCs of intimacy. So what we are talking about today is the letters A, B, and C. A is for affection, B is for boundaries, and C is for consent. So again, intimacy is extremely different for everybody. Some people, I don't know, it's just different. So let's talk love languages. We all know that there are 5 love languages: physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, let's see, quality time, and what's the fifth one? Physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service. There's one more that I'm missing. So if you know what it is, let me know what that 5th one is. But I know everybody's love languages are different, and how you experience intimacy is different. So first things first, we're going to get into the letter A, which stands for affection. Affection is so many different things. It's not just the act of giving physical affection and attention because you're trying to get something out of it. Affection comes in so many ways. So I don't know if you guys know this, but when it comes to the Knicks one, super excited. My boyfriend is not a Knicks fan. I'm not really a sports person. I just love the hype. And so I was pretty stoked that the Knicks won because it's exciting. Also, I like the colors. I like the orange and the blue together. That's really the only reason why I like them. So I don't know if that's a good reason. So anyways, getting back into talking about intimacy and affection. So affection is a really, really important part of intimacy and a really important part of relationships. You can't bake a cake unless the oven is warmed up, right? So when you get to the end of the night and you're trying to put the moves on your partner and they're just not in the mood, there's usually a reason, because there's been a lack of affection throughout the day. So affection comes in different ways. Some people are not public affection type of people, whereas other people need all the PDA. I need attention and I need affection. I am somebody that needs to know that you want and desire me by the amount of affection that you give. And it can be little things. It can be kisses, it can be hugs, it can be touches here and there. A touch on the small of a woman's back, a graze on her arm, a touch on her face, anything like that that shows a sign of affection is super important. So I don't know, do you guys want to tell me in the comments, what kind of affection do you enjoy that's a non-sexual affection? I'm not talking anything that's leading up towards, getting to the finish line. What is some kind of affection that means something to you? I know a lot of times men don't really get to talk about the kind of affection that they want. You're really only expected to, want to get your engines going, but there's more to that. So what's something that a partner could do to show you affection that would make you feel really good? I know that my boyfriend loves when I scratch his head and run my hair through his hands. That's a little sign of affection that really makes him feel really good. It makes him feel safe and loved and cared about. And it's something that I love to do because physical touch is one of my love languages to give. And it's one of his to receive. So what's a type of physical touch or affection that you give to other people, or that you want, or not that you give, I'm sorry. What's a type of affection that you would like to receive? Maybe a hair touch? Okay. So if a woman or your partner were running their hands through your hair, that's the kind of affection that you would enjoy. Sometimes people don't really think about it, and they don't even think to ask about it or talk about it unless it comes up. If you're in a relationship and you just don't feel like you're getting a lot of affection from your partner, it can affect the relationship. It can affect mental health and emotional health, and it can affect your closeness, and it can really, cause a wedge in the relationship. So I love that, you said maybe a hair touch. So this is opening up a conversation and making you think about it. So maybe, I don't know if you're in a relationship or not, Jay, but that could be something that you could bring up to a partner, that, hey, I really like it when you play with my hair. It just makes me feel really good. And that just opened up a conversation about affection and helped make you closer to your partner. Communication is huge. So we're talking about the ABCs of intimacy. We're starting with the letter A, which is all about affection. I am definitely an affectionate girly. I love giving and receiving all kinds of physical touch. That is one of my major love languages. I'm struggling with my technology here. Let's see, because I want to be able to touch on all of my talking points, but I can't do that unless I'm properly logged into everything, which I'm not. I should have done this before I logged on. But we're learning. we're learning as I go. Let's see. Hello. Okay, so once again, just to reintroduce myself, my name's Nora Love. I'm a model, entertainer, mother, and oracle, and full of love, light, and a little spice. And I've started a series called the ABCs of Intimacy, where we have real conversations for deeper connections. And I am an intimacy coach where I essentially help people have better communication to explore their intimate needs. Absolutely nothing is off limits. I have to be careful what I say because TikTok loves to ban me, block me, restrict me any chance it gets. So I have to be very careful about my words. But this is an opportunity to ask any question that you might have to help you have a deeper conversation with your partner. And we're going through the letters A, B, and C. A is for affection, B is for boundaries, and C is for consent. So starting with A for affection, we've talked about love languages. Words of affirmation is a very big love language. I don't have a Twitter. I hate Twitter, but I think I need to make one, and I think I need to get on there. It seems to be where everybody is. This app hates me. I barely get any attention on this app at all. So I think I need to create a Twitter, I guess. I guess I'm gonna do that. I really don't want to, but I think I have to, unfortunately. I don't know. What's the hype about Twitter? Twitter seems like a scary place to me. I don't know if I really want to, but I might have to. Okay. I am trying to log in. This is going to be such a pain in the butt. I should have done this before I got onto live. Okay. Is that the right one? Is that the right password? No, of course it's not the right password. Just log in and post and log out. I probably could do that. That's true. I could just post and then not ever pay attention. It's such a black hole of negativity though. But why do you think I should be on Twitter? What is it about Twitter that, I don't know. I feel like if I go to Twitter, that's where all the negativity and the haters are. And I'm just going to get flooded with a bunch of nasty troll comments. It happens no matter what, but Twitter seems to be a hotbed for that type of activity, which I guess if I'm going to be on the internet, I can't really care quite as much, but I don't know. But anyways, so welcome in. Hello. So I'm Nora Love. I am your host this evening of the ABCs of Intimacy, a conversation to spark deeper connections within relationships and couples. And I am an intimacy coach where I help people be comfortable navigating uncomfortable conversations around intimacy. So this is my first time going live to talk about this, but really, how does that even work? I don't know. Do you go live on Twitter or do you just post on Twitter? I might have to play around with that tonight. I don't know. But I appreciate the insight because I need that, I need that suggestion, I guess. So let's talk about the letter A, which stands for affection. And I do think that there is a massive disconnect between men and women. And this is an open conversation. Happy Pride, everybody. We love of all kinds. I do think specifically between men and women in heterosexual relationships, there is a massive disconnect when it comes to conversations surrounding affection. Your typical cis, straight, heterosexual man is pretty much told that they are not supposed to be too soft or too feminine or too loving or too whatever, the whole alpha male thing. But that's a lie, unfortunately. I wish that more people would talk about it. it's okay to show softness. It's okay to show tenderness. It's okay to be affectionate and sweet and kind to your partners. It is okay to do that. But it's also really important to have conversations about these things. So in the conversation surrounding intimacy and surrounding affection, because that's what we're specifically talking about right now, is affection. So I want to get into that a little bit more about how important that affection is. I don't think I'm going to be able to get into this, so we're going to just go away from that. And I'm going to pull up some talking points about affection. Let's see. Scientific facts about why showing affection is important for mental and emotional health. Okay, so again, just post no lives, but your content would go viral and drive major. You think so? TikTok is very, very slow. I'll try it. I will try it out. I don't know. I guess that's because I get like no traction on TikTok, but I'll definitely try it out. It's worth a shot. Okay, so one of the first things about affection is showing affection is a biological necessity that actively regulates the nervous system. Physical and emotional expressions of love trigger significant hormonal shifts in the brain, actively lowering stress levels, alleviating symptoms of anxiety, and fostering deep emotional security. I love that. So that's incredibly important for anybody, whether you're in a relationship or, you know, for your children, for your spouses, for your friends even. Like, honestly, guys, go and give your male friends a hug. Just give them a hug. Hugs are so incredibly healing, and affection is so, so important. It's such an important part of a relationship. And if you're not getting enough affection or you're not getting the right kind of affection, it's good to speak up and be very, very specific about what kind of affection that you want. For example, if your partner thinks that, you know, smacking you on the butt, now I love a good butt smack, don't get me wrong, but if that's the only way that your partner is showing you affection is things that seem to be very physical in terms of like grabbing certain body parts or maybe like rubbing themselves on you in a certain way, and that's the kind of affection that they're showing, calm down. And that's the kind of affection that they're showing. That may not work for everybody. You know, that actually could bother someone if they feel like, hey, the only time that you're showing me affection is when it's schmexual. Again, I have to be careful about the words I use. Versus, can't you just give me a hug? Can't you just, you know, rub my back a little bit? Maybe just like hold my hand. There are small types of affection that can really, really make a huge difference in a relationship. But like this says, it's a biological necessity. So affection is absolutely necessary on all different kinds of affection. So again, I'm going to read it again. Showing affection is a biological necessity that actively regulates the nervous system. Physical and emotional expressions of love trigger significant hormonal shifts in the brain, actively lowering stress levels, alleviating symptoms of anxiety, and fostering deep emotional security. So those are some of the benefits of affection and showing physical affection in relationships. And I do think that we don't communicate about these things enough, and it can drive wedges in relationships. If you're wondering, you know, why your partner isn't showing you love or not making you feel loved, it could be that you're lacking affection in your relationship. You would be very surprised when your partner is in a bad mood and they're grouchy, what a hug would do. Just a quick come up from behind them, give them a hug with no other intentions other than just showing them some affection, and how much that can immediately change a person's whole entire mood and whole entire day. So affection is extremely important. Let's get into the neurochemical changes that affection can bring. So let's see. So affection physically alters brain chemistry, boosting feel-good chemicals while suppressing stress hormones. So a hug, a pat on the back, a graze of the arm, touching someone's face, playing with someone's hair, any kind of affection alters your brain chemistry. It boosts all of those feel-good chemicals, the dopamine, the serotonin, all of that, and it actually suppresses the stress hormones. So if you're in a relationship and you guys are just not getting along, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety involved. I'm sure there's a million other reasons that could be the cause of it, but amazingly enough, a little bit of affection can genuinely go a very, very long way. Like this says, showing affection is a biological necessity. It boosts the feel-good chemicals. So it's going to boost a hug, a kind and affectionate touch, you know, playing with the hair. It boosts those feel-good chemicals. It's going to boost your serotonin and your dopamine and all that. And it's going to suppress the stressful hormones that you're feeling. So affection scientifically is going to make you feel better, and it's going to reduce stress. So if your man comes home, if your woman comes home and they are stressed out, they're already in a bad mood, give them a hug. Just give them a hug. A quick 5-second hug might be all that you need to help reduce their stress level. You know, give them a quick kiss on the cheek, maybe play with their hair a little bit, show some type of affection, and you would be absolutely amazed the difference that it could make. Okay? So let's talk about oxytocin release. So oxytocin is dubbed the cuddle hormone, which I love this because we all know cuddling is a sign of affection. Once again, I do have to reiterate, we're talking about just cuddling. We're talking about cuddling without the intention of it leading towards more. So just cuddling helps to release oxytocin. So oxytocin is the cuddle hormone. It's released during hugging and touching. It triggers a reduction in activity within the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center. So the amygdala is the brain's fear center. So a hug can actually help to reduce activity in your brain's fear center. And it produces feelings of calm, trust, and psychological safety. So affection helps to reduce the activity in your brain's fear center and increase the feelings of calm, trust, and psychological safety. So again, a simple hug, a simple caress, the slightest show of affection can make the biggest difference to somebody's mental health. And that is huge in a relationship. If there's a disconnect in your relationship, if you're not connecting, there's a million reasons for it, but try the letter A in the ABCs of intimacy, affection. So simple. The smallest type of affection can really, really make the biggest difference. So serotonin and dopamine. So we've learned that oxytocin is the cuddle hormone, and when that is released through hugs or touching, it reduces the amygdala, the activity in your amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, and it produces feelings of calm, trust, and psychological safety. So we learned something new. Your amygdala is where your fear is kept, and a hug can help reduce that fear and increase your feelings of trust. Try it with your partner. Just a hug out of nowhere, and see how that makes any difference. Okay? Serotonin and dopamine. So these neurotransmitters are heavily stimulated by physical touch, promoting an uplifted mood, heightened feelings of pleasure, and overall happiness. So we already discussed that, like a hug, physical touch, helps to boost your serotonin and your dopamine. It helps all those happy, feel-good brain chemicals get stirred up, and it reduces the fear chemicals in your brain, which is why physical touch is so important and affection is so important. You need all three of those at the moment. We all do, honestly, we all do. And again, it doesn't just come from your partners. It's not just a sexual thing. You can get it from family. You can get it from friends. Any type of show of physical touch absolutely increases your happy hormones, your happy endorphins, and reduces the sad, scary ones. Cortisol reduction. Cortisol, I think, is something we're all suddenly so much more familiar with. All of a sudden, cortisol is just like spiked, right? Everyone is having cortisol issues. Affection is proven to lower cortisol, the primary stress hormone, which protects the body from negative cognitive and physical impacts of chronic stress. That says a lot right there. So affection, if you're feeling chronic stress, if you're always stressed out, if you have high cortisol, it's because you're not getting enough affection. Affection is huge. And again, that's just physical touch. Some type of physical touch, some show of affection. It's going to raise all of those endorphins, the dopamine, those happy chemicals in your brain while reducing all of the stress chemicals in your brain. And it reduces cortisol, which is extremely important. And it helps to, I guess, counter the negative impacts of chronic stress, which we are all constantly dealing with. And I know it's difficult in a world where people don't go out anymore. Everyone's extremely isolated. So it is very hard to get that affection from others sometimes. So, you know, I think that that's where self-care and everything definitely comes into place. But I hope that everyone has somebody out there, whether it's a significant other, a really good friend, a family member, somebody that you can share affection with and receive affection from to help balance out all of those hormones and chemicals in your body. Okay, mental health and emotional benefits. We're going to switch hands because my hand is hurting. Mental health and emotional benefits. The neurobiological responses to affection translate directly into tangible psychological and emotional advantages. It's a stress buffer. Individuals in supportive, affectionate relationships exhibit higher emotional resilience and bounce back faster from daily stressors. So, I mean, honestly, that's why when you see couples that are extremely touchy-feely and very lovey-dovey and like all over each other, they're typically a lot happier in general because they're helping to increase all of those feel-good hormones in each other and helping to reduce each other's stress. So PDA, pack on that PDA, make out in public, hang all over each other. My boyfriend knows I am super affectionate. He's also very affectionate. I'm very affectionate. I'm all over him when we're together. I have my hands all over him all the time. It makes me feel good. It reduces my stress. It increases my dopamine, and it makes him feel good too. So affection is a stress buffer, and this is backed up by science. So, relief from depression and anxiety. Consistent affectionate communication and touch lessen symptoms of both depression and anxiety, which is why people who do tend to be reclusive and, you know, keep to themselves can experience higher amounts of stress and anxiety. And again, this is not just romantic. It's not just, you know, a partner. You can get this from friends. You can get this from family members. It's all about just shows of affection. So affection helps to provide relief from depression and anxiety. Consistent affection, communication, and touch lessens the symptoms of both depression and anxiety. And social bonding. So oxytocin and other endorphins strengthen relational trust, encouraging the social connections that are vital for long-term mental wellness. So all of those endorphins, all that oxytocin, all of those endorphins that are being released when you're showing affection or receiving affection plays a huge role in building trust and social connections. So again, this is why, you know, having friends that you feel comfortable showing affection to is so incredibly important for long-term mental wellness. So again, it doesn't have to be a partner. It doesn't have to be romantic. Guys, it is okay to hug your friends. Give your friend a hug. Give your male friend a hug. Just give him a hug. It is going to boost your serotonin and your endorphins and your oxytocin, and it is going to decrease your stress hormones. It is going to decrease stress and depression and anxiety. Give your friends a hug. Show a little affection. Okay? let's see. So there's a theory called the affection exchange theory. It's evolutionary psychology. The expression of affection is a biological imperative. It helps humans maintain social ties, ensures survival, and promotes overall mental stability. So it's again backed by science that showing affection, receiving affection promotes overall mental stability. Really, really important. The physical health impacts of affection. Because mental and physical health are closely linked, these expressions also benefit the body by lowering the heart rate, reducing blood pressure, and strengthening the immune system. So again, something as simple as a hug can not only help combat anxiety and depression and reduce stress hormones, but it can also strengthen your immune system and lower your blood pressure and lower your heart rate. Something as simple as a hug. So guys, all of you guys out there that are so worried about, you know, being called gay or something because you want to like give your homie a hug, you're doing yourself a disservice. You could be preventing a heart attack one day just because you gave your friend a hug. So, moving on. What else do we got? Okay, I think that was everything. I love that. All right. We covered a lot with affection. That was great. So now we're going to move on into boundaries. I think I'm going to sit down, but I'm liking where this conversation is going. I'm going to take this off because it's falling off of my arm. Okay. Moving on into, so we covered the ABCs of intimacy. We covered the letter A, which was affection, and we talked about how showing signs of affection, giving and receiving affection helps to boost all of your happy hormones and your happy chemicals like serotonin, oxytocin, and all of those endorphins, and it actually reduces your stress hormones. It reduces cortisol, it reduces anxiety and depression, and is vital for mental balance and mental health. So affection is extremely important when it comes to healthy relationships and just mental health in general. So that's, now that we've covered affection, we're going to get into talking about boundaries. Ooh, I didn't want to do that. How does having boundaries within a relationship help to improve the connection? Okay, let's see. I know talking about boundaries can be really hard for people because it might require you to have to say something that you think is going to upset somebody or make them uncomfortable or, you know, whatever, because you don't like something or you don't want something. But boundaries is extremely important within a relationship, and communicating about boundaries is very important in a relationship. Jay, you're the most talkative one in here, so I feel like you would be the best person to ask a question. How about we open up the floor and ask a question? Is there anything that you've ever wanted to ask a woman or just ask anybody in relation to intimacy? Anything you're curious about? Let's see. While I figure out how to get this working. Scientific facts about how establishing boundaries within a relationship impact intimacy and connections. Okay. So now that we're getting into the letter B of the ABCs of intimacy, we're talking about boundaries. Boundaries can be a difficult conversation to have for people. If you're worried that putting up a boundary is going to potentially upset your partner, cause a rift in the relationship, make things uncomfortable, for one, you already have a problem if you don't feel comfortable being able to have conversations about boundaries with your partner. But here's some reasons why talking about boundaries is extremely important. So, scientific research shows that establishing healthy boundaries within relationships paradoxically fosters deeper intimacy and stronger connections, which is why we're here. We want to build deeper connections, right? We want to build deeper intimacy and stronger connections, and boundaries play a very big role in that. By clarifying individual comfort zones, boundaries prevent burnout, safeguard emotional and physical safety, and allow vulnerability to flourish without fear of judgment. So, let's see, clarifying individual comfort zones. We all have different comfort zones. We all have different levels of comfort. So part of boundaries and having conversations about boundaries is establishing your comfort zone. I know a lot of straight men in here that have a no-go zone. Although I do think you should open up your mind a little bit more, but that could be a boundary for you, that you do not, want anything inserted or injected or going into you. That could be a hard boundary for you, and it's important to talk about these things. Let's see. Boundaries. So talking about boundaries also prevents burnout. If you're somebody who's a yes person, who is a people pleaser, who's always doing and saying things to make other people happy, eventually that leads to extreme burnout and resentment. If you don't know how to have boundaries and establish boundaries with people, it will lead to burnout eventually, because you'll continue to say yes and yes and be pushed into things that you're not comfortable with, and eventually it does lead to burnout and resentment. So establishing boundaries within a relationship, communicating boundaries, helps to prevent burnout within a relationship. Let's see. And it safeguards emotional and physical safety, which obviously is extremely important. Physical safety is extremely important in any intimate connection. Being able to communicate your boundaries will make sure that you stay safe. Everybody has different levels of comfort zones and what they're okay with. You have to verbalize that. You have to express your boundaries to make sure that you stay emotionally, mentally, and physically safe in any experience. Okay, let's see. Okay, and allowing vulnerability to flourish without fear. So allowing yourself to be vulnerable, that is very important in a relationship, to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to feel safe, being able to let your guard down with somebody. So in order to do that, being able to establish boundaries is extremely important, because then you can be vulnerable. Once you know that you've established a boundary and there's a respect for that boundary, you can feel safe being vulnerable with your partner. So it's another good reason why boundaries, B, as part of the ABCs of intimacy, is boundaries, and why boundaries are so incredibly important for healthy communication and deeper connections. So the psychological and physiological impacts of setting boundaries include decreased conflict and increased satisfaction. Studies indicate that couples who effectively negotiate and maintain personal boundaries experience higher relationship satisfaction and significantly lower rates of conflict. So being able to have conversations where you can establish your boundaries with your partner, it helps to eliminate the conflict, because if you've already talked about it, they already understand where you're coming from and they respect that, then there won't be any conflict about that. And then the relationship satisfaction. So everyone is on the same page. So higher satisfaction, less conflict. I think that is safe to say that that's extremely important in any intimate relationship. So again, talking about the ABCs of intimacy and discussing boundaries and how important it is to strengthen vulnerability, reduce conflict. Let's see. Oh, I lost my place. And increase satisfaction, which is obviously the end goal, right? Everybody wants to reach that finish line. So establishing boundaries, communicating boundaries is extremely important. Fostering autonomy. Bodily autonomy is a huge, hot topic that, interesting enough, a lot of men don't really have to worry about body autonomy. The only time that really comes into question is when you join the military, right? Once you join the military, your body is not your own. It belongs to the government now. That's really the only time that men have their body autonomy questioned. Women deal with it all the time. Intimacy requires two distinct individuals. Research highlights that respecting boundaries ensures both partners maintain their own identity, which builds mutual respect. So having a boundary, communicating that boundary, helps to maintain your individuality as a person, as your own entity, and helps to build a mutual respect. So when you don't have boundaries and you do allow people to run over you, when you are a people pleaser, oftentimes the people that you're pleasing don't have a lot of respect for you because they know that you don't have boundaries and they are essentially taking advantage. So establishing boundaries within a relationship is extremely important to help build mutual respect. Let's see. Oh, and the autonomy, the maintaining your own identity, being able to let a person know, like, this is who I am as an individual person, this is what I'm comfortable with and not comfortable with, and this is where my boundary is. And that is extremely important for personal bodily autonomy, which is crucial for any healthy relationship. Regulating the nervous system. So again, part of the ABCs of intimacy, we're on to the letter B now, which is for boundaries. We have learned a lot about boundaries already, but now we're talking about how having boundaries helps to regulate your nervous system. In relationship science, setting boundaries is viewed as a way to regulate stress. Clear boundaries reduce ambiguity and protect against emotional exhaustion, establishing a sense of predictability and safety. Emotional exhaustion is such a great term because I think so many of us have experienced that in a relationship. Emotional exhaustion, feeling emotionally exhausted and drained. And again, that circles back to being a people pleaser and having a lack of boundaries. When you don't have boundaries, it does allow for emotional exhaustion. So one of the benefits of having strong boundaries within a relationship is to prevent emotional exhaustion. Let's see. And it says it establishes a sense of predictability and safety. So, and that's another part of being able to be vulnerable. When you have a pattern of predictability and safety within a relationship, you feel safe being able to be vulnerable with your partner. And that helps to increase intimacy so much. So another reason why boundaries are extremely important. Once those boundaries are established and understood and respected, then you can let your walls down. You can let you can be a little bit more uninhibited and relaxed and just enjoy the moment. Protecting your sexual well-being. So studies in sexual psychology demonstrate that clear communication of physical and sexual boundaries is vital for mutual trust and long-term desire, as it creates an environment free of pressure. So that's another really important part too, is being able to communicate your boundaries in a relationship helps to alleviate pressure. A lot of times people feel pressured in relationships to have to do things or act in ways that maybe they wouldn't be comfortable with. It goes back to being a people pleaser, right? It goes back to wanting to make people happy to the detriment of yourself and your own boundaries. So being able to establish boundaries helps to create trust and facilitates long-term desire, and it creates an environment free of pressure. So when there's no pressure, there's no stress, there's trust, you can be vulnerable. And those things are incredibly important to facilitate a deep, intimate connection. So another reason why boundaries are so incredibly important. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else that we want to discuss? Okay, so we've talked about affection and why that is so important for relationships and how it increases all of those happy chemicals in your brain and body and reduces your fear and stress chemicals. And then B, boundaries, and why boundaries are incredibly important to also reduce fear and stress within relationships and create create an environment of trust that allows you to be vulnerable. So affection and boundaries. So now moving on to our favorite word of the day, consent. Consent is incredibly important, and we all know this, but we're going to talk about why consent is so important when it comes to relationships and creating deeper, intimate connections. So I think we all have a general idea of why consent is important, obviously, but we're going to get a little bit more into it from a scientific perspective. scientific facts about why consent is important within relationships. So we like backing up everything with science. I can have opinions all day long about how I feel about things, but when the science backs it up, you really can't argue with that. If you do, I'm not going to listen to you because, don't argue with science. Also, what's interesting though about science is that I feel like the more that scientists actually start to discover real truths, they go missing. All of these scientists that have been disappearing and unalived and all kinds of things, those are the ones I feel like are actually like reaching the truth. Okay, so now we're on to the letter C, where we are going to discuss consent and the importance of consent within emotional, intimate relationships. We have gone through A and B. A was affection, B was for boundaries, and now C is discussing consent. Since we have some new people in this chat, I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is Nora Love. I'm a model, entertainer, mother, and oracle, full of love, light, and a little spice. And this is the Love Show, where we have real conversations for deeper connections. And we talk all about intimacy and how to increase intimacy within your life and with your partners, learning how to love yourself more, and just exploring everything about intimacy. If anybody in the chat has any questions, if you want to, ask anything, if you have questions about women, how our brains work, what we think, what we're looking for, how can you, strengthen your relationship with your partner, I'm all ears. Nothing is off limits. No topic is off limits. So we've talked about A, affection. We've talked about B, boundaries. And now we're going to get into C for consent. And I think everyone has a pretty general idea of what consent means, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper into why consent is so incredibly vital and important when it comes to intimacy and relationships and strengthening relationships. Okay, ooh, I need a drink. I've been talking a lot. I like this way. I was really nervous. Like I was telling my boyfriend, I get really nervous when I just have to talk to the camera. But I have talking points. As long as I have talking points and I have things I can discuss, I feel much better about that. So, scientific research shows that consent is essential because it respects individual autonomy. So it goes back to boundaries and personal autonomy. Unfortunately, I live in the United States and we have a little struggle when it comes to bodily autonomy for women. We have a little bit of a struggle when it comes to consent and boundaries for women. It's a problem. And I mean, it's a problem all over the world, unfortunately, but I do think that we're collectively as a species trying to do better. At least I hope that we are. So anyways, scientific research shows that consent is essential because it respects the individual autonomy, actively prevents psychological distress, and fosters mutual trust and relationship satisfaction. So we're back to those keywords, trust and satisfaction, which are all the things that we want in a relationship, right? And especially within intimacy, satisfaction is key, but how do we get there? So talking about consent. By setting clear boundaries, couples actively reduce harm, reduce miscommunication, and build a stronger foundation for emotional intimacy. That really says it itself. So what does consent do? Aside from just obviously making sure that you're giving permission and understanding clearly where a person's boundary is, it reduces harm, reduces miscommunication, and builds a stronger foundation for emotional intimacy. I know some people feel like they're confused about consent. If you don't get a clear yes, there's no consent. It needs to be clear. There needs to be no question, or else there's no consent. The scientific evidence behind the importance of consent spans several core areas. Promotes relationship satisfaction. So we're back to that word satisfaction. Everyone thinks being satisfied is getting that big O. But no, before you can get to that, There are so many other more important things that need to be explored. Studies indicate that explicitly communicated, enthusiastic consent correlates with higher sexual and overall relationship satisfaction for both partners. Enthusiastic consent. So let's not even talk about regular consent. Enthusiastic consent. Enthusiastic consent. What does that mean? That means enthusiasm, enthusiastic. That means you're saying, yes, I want this. Yes, please do that. Enthusiastic consent. Conversely, passive or assumed consent is associated with sexual distress and reduced relationship quality. So if there's any question about whether or not consent is present, then it's not. Assumed consent is not consent. Assumed consent is associated with sexual distress. Sexual distress. So assumed consent is associated with sexual distress versus enthusiastic consent correlates to higher sexual and overall relationship satisfaction. Enthusiastic consent correlates to higher satisfaction. Assumed consent is associated with sexual distress. So do we want satisfaction or do we want distress? Assumed consent equals sexual distress. Enthusiastic consent equals satisfaction. I love that. That's going to be a talking point for me for a while. Enthusiastic consent equals satisfaction. Assumed consent equals distress. Consent also establishes neurological safety. Openly discussing boundaries creates psychological safety. Knowing that a partner will respect limits allows the brain to experience deeper levels of vulnerability and emotional connection, triggering the release of bonding hormones like oxytocin. So when you set a boundary and you establish consent and you know that your partner respects those limits, it allows your brain to reach a deeper level of vulnerability and emotional connection. And it triggers the release of bonding hormones like oxytocin. So establishing boundaries, establishing consent, and knowing that your partner respects your limits allows your brain to experience deeper levels of vulnerability and emotional connection, triggering the release of bonding hormones like oxytocin. So we go back around full circle again, that establishing boundaries, expressing and communicating consent, and having a partner that respects those limits releases more oxytocin, releases more happy chemicals, reduces more stress, and helps to increase trust within intimate relationships. Consent also prevents a power imbalance. Psychological frameworks on relationship dynamics show that consent acts as a balance wheel, ensuring that no single person dictates the terms of the relationship, protecting both partners' mental health. So that's a really important one. A really big part of establishing consent in a relationship means that no partner has the upper hand, that nobody has more control in the relationship. Nobody's dictating the terms of the relationship. By establishing consent, by having a partner that respects those limits, helps to remove any type of control in the relationship. It removes any chance that one person might be dictating the terms of the relationship, and it protects everyone's mental health. So very simple. Establishing consent, respecting consent protects your mental health within the confines of your relationship and increases your intimate connection. Consent also enhances communication styles. Research published by the National Center of Biotechnology Information, or the NCBI, confirms that explicitly stating desires with explicit verbal cues allow partners to navigate intimacy safely and avoid misunderstandings. So we're back to avoiding miscommunications and avoiding misunderstandings by stating your desires with verbal cues. Communication is so important. So we've talked about establishing boundaries. Now we're talking about consent, which is a verbal cue. You have to verbalize your consent in order for it to be heard and understood. And it also helps partners to navigate intimacy safely and avoid miscommunications. So, like I said before, enthusiastic consent leads to, what did it say? Because I like how enthusiastic consent correlates with higher sexual and overall relationship satisfaction. So enthusiastic consent equals satisfaction. Assumed consent equals distress. We don't want distress when we're trying to be intimate with our partner. We want satisfaction, right? So we don't assume consent. We have enthusiastic consent. We give verbal cues, verbal enthusiastic cues to show consent. Okay, and then back to bodily autonomy. So consent also encourages bodily autonomy. Consent ensures that both individuals maintain complete control over their own choices, which behavioral psychology identifies as a fundamental human need for well-being. So we're back on, I don't know why TikTok does that to me. I guess because maybe I'm sitting in one place and I'm not moving around enough, or maybe because I've just been on live for a while. But anyways, so let's see. So a fundamental human need for well-being, bodily autonomy. So bodily autonomy is incredibly important for everyone's mental and emotional health. So enthusiastic consent equals satisfaction. Assumed consent equals distress. So what are we going to do? We're going to give verbal cues of our enthusiastic consent. All of these things are going to help achieve deeper connections and better communication with your partners. So I think we covered a lot of stuff. We covered the ABCs of intimacy: A for affection, B for boundaries, and C for consent. And we've learned that all three of them help to increase all of the feel-good hormones and chemicals in your brain and your body, and help to reduce all of the fear and stress chemicals in your brain and your body. They also help to contribute to an environment of trust and safety so that you can feel more vulnerable and safe with your partner. And we've learned that giving enthusiastic consent with verbal cues leads to satisfaction, and that's what we all want. I hope this has been helpful to somebody. I would love to hear your feedback and some other topics that you'd like to talk about. Once again, this is a safe space. My name is Nora Love. I'm a model, entertainer, mother, and oracle full of love, light, and a little spice. And this is The Love Show, where we have real conversations for deeper connections. This has been a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to do this again. I'm tired of talking though, so I think I'm going to get off of the live for a little while. But I will be back. Let me know what else you guys want to talk about. And follow Love Show TV, which is on my other page. I think it's linked in my bio. If you go to my bio, there's a link there. It has all of my links. It has everything that I'm involved in. So please go and check out the link in my bio. Follow me on all platforms and let me know what you thought about today's lesson, the ABCs of intimacy, where we covered letters A, B, and C, affection, boundaries, and consent. And the next round of videos, I'll be covering D, E, and F, which I don't off the top of my head know what those letters stand for, but it'll be a lot of fun to talk about. And if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, any topics that you'd like to discuss related to relationships and intimacy, please let me know. Send me a DM, drop it in the comments of any of my videos, and let's talk about it. Let's have more conversations.